Welcome to a new series of films which are going to show in a fair amount of detail how we have worked to restore and preserve this historical building. It's a railway workers' building, which isn't typical for the area since it's a little over 100 years old. It would have normally, in this rural area, have been made of lofterhus, a timber house, a log house. But this house is built as a post and beam construction, which was not so typical for the time. And it was built in connection with the establishment of a railway in the area, and was lived in by one of these people that worked building this railway or somehow connected with the railway. And this is the first little look at the building. I'm looking around trying to find damage that can be repaired, or having a kind of, when you first start a job, you have to kind of get an idea of the building. You have to start to understand its history, and the technical process that's happened, so that you can kind of retro-engineer the same thing to preserve it. So this is my customer, and Hans Høgnes, who I'm subcontracting this project for. So we open up the wall and find our first surprise.
Tror du ikke det? Taket så enkelt at det var fort gjort å bygge et nytt tak der. Med den 30-talls takvinkel.
Ja, men hvorfor så lav tak er det ned? Ja, så er vi gamle veggen.
Da har vi tatt oss fjernet litt mer lenger ut der, og den råteskade der under vinduet. Det virker som det stopper ganske raskt. Da det helt i båndsville.
We often find pieces of documentary evidence like this in walls, and it could be that they're put there intentionally. They certainly help a lot finding and making a precise judgment of the date that the different parts of the building are built. So as we work, our understanding of this building increases.
Okay, there are some signs here of collapse. So the next step is going to be to take off that board there and find out just how bad it is in that bottom 5-inch by 5-inch beam.
Now, taking away this material, it can be quite brutal, but you do also at the same time have to be really quite careful of what's not damaged. I'm always looking for the minimum amount of work, the minimum minste ingrepp, it's called in Norwegian. The least ingrepp is like a kind of involvement or process. Obviously I don't want to start breaking boards that are in good condition. This is fact-finding. I'm trying to find out the extent of the damage. So boards that are clearly useless can just be ripped off, but you see, look, that as soon as you get away from the wet rot, that fresh timber there is, once it's split there, you see the nice bright colour of it. It's actually very localised, the damage with these things. It's to do with water coming in and getting stuck in a certain place and allowing a kind of environment for wood rot to set in, or insects to damage the timber.
Oh, looks good. Okay, there's been a repair Right, that might explain why. It might explain why these pieces of board here are lying instead of standing. There's been a repair made, so that's all in good condition under there. I'll take that off all the way. Just replace that one. Okay, that's the repair. It's called the lap joint, I think. So I'm not sure which is the new bit and which is the old. But it's definitely had a repair.
I'm not too keen on mineral wool insulation. That's going to have to go.
So this looks like an original board. So when this has had the new panel put on it, looks like they've taken an axe to this and cut it down. So I imagine that this came out a lot further originally. What I'd like to know really is whether or not, I can see now that that isn't actually part of the bottom piece of timber there. It's just nailed onto it. So that was put on, and then these boards were put on top. So it's just it's called the Van in Norwegian, a water board. You know, I don't know what you would call it in English. Just to lead the water away from the bottom of the plank. So it looks like the damage stops around about here. That's a nice piece of timber there. So I'll just replace the part that's rotten under here. Try and disturb this stuff underneath as little as possible, take out the nails, and then do the same thing that's been done about 40 or 50 years after this house was built, and that is just space out the difference between the old planks and the new, straighten it up, put either a paper, maybe a tar paper, or perhaps polypropylene. We'll do a bit of research on that before we make a decision about that. I'll confer a little bit with the guys that I work together with, and then we'll just put a copy of this panel back on. So that's the plan of action. It doesn't look too bad really. Most of the damage is underneath the windows, and I think it's because there was a period when this house was not lived in, and that's maybe had some broken windows. And it's resulted in some high humidity, and I see signs to insect damage produced by high humidity. So it's a typical damage, and I'm not worried about leaving a little bit of rot in the wall, because it would have been caused by that humidity coming in from the windows. There's an example. That standing post there has had some insect damage. That's just from high humidity. As soon as the source of water disappears, the humidity goes down, and the insects can't carry on destroying the wood.
I have to point out for my American viewers that you can't take what I'm saying here as being direction for your practice in America, because you have different insects to here in Norway. So this is not advice for what you should do on your house unless you're here in Norway, and preferably also actually in this region.
One thing I have decided or thought about here is the fact that those beams at the bottom there don't stand to there's a bit of sideways slippage, so I have to decide whether or not to address that, whether we should jack that side of the house back in. I'll discuss that again with the customer and with my colleagues.